All right. So, GOhioCast podcast, we have Marysville girls head coach tonight, Shawn Andrews, my former teammate, my former coach,
Yep.
mentor,
Yeah, it goes way
all
back.
around good friend.
Yeah.
Married one of the smartest girls at KSU, the best
Yeah.
gymnast in Meredith. So, and she's a 98er, isn't she? She's a
Yeah.
90 high school, right?
Yep. Yep. Same as you.
Okay. And then you're 96, right?
Correct.
All right. Coach. Congratulations on the state finalist appearance in the most recent girls dual state championships.
Yeah.
It was a little different than the duel that I filmed at KSU. Um, what was different about your runner-up finish compared to your duel at Kent State with Orange?
So there's a couple things. One, when we wrestled them at Kent, we just kind of wrestled them straight up. Let's just see, how things go. We had one girl out of the lineup, and I don't know what it's like for you guys at school, but man, everybody's been sick. I mean, it's just like fighting things tooth and nail. So when we wrestled them at then the state duels, our starting 20 pounder was out sick. Our starting 15 pounder was in Disney World. Like she had, she's relatively new to the sport. Her family had scheduled this trip like 4 months ago. And so we knew if we were going to have a chance, we had to like make some moves. And so I know Brian alluded to it in the last podcast when he was on with you, but basically our 155 is the only person that wrestled the same person in the duel. So we made some moves, and it was actually really, it looked like we were really smart until we weren't. And on paper they're the better team, so we had to take some chances, and some of them paid off and some didn't, and they ended up getting us by about the same score. But it was a lot of fun. I wish there was someone who had like an overhead view of the gym, because we started doing the state duels 4 or 5 years ago just because we felt like it was important to bring along the sport. And the first couple of years it was not great wrestling, and it wasn't great full lineups. And this time it was us versus Orange. Every team who was in the field stuck around, and were like surrounded around the mat, just like watching the duel. There's a bunch of teams like Dane Johnson at Alliance, and some other, Dom Adams at Whitmer brought his team down. So, there's a lot of girls who wrestle freestyle in the summer. There's a lot of coaches who are there on other teams who know the girls. It's just a different vibe. The bleachers were packed, so it was a lot of fun to compete in. Obviously, we wanted to win, but it was a lot of fun.
When I talked to Coach Nicola, he said the vibe is completely different with girls as opposed to coaching boys. Both of you were longtime boys coaches in Ohio high school. You were the head coach at Marysville for it had to be almost 20 years. How long?
Let's see. I think it was 16 or 17 years as the head boys coach, and then I did both for a little bit, and then switched over to coaching girls. So,
You're a
uh,
lunatic. I want you to know that. I
yeah,
want on the record to let you know you're a lunatic for doing both. Was that a year or two?
it was, well, here's what it was. We did both until the year. I did both until the year it was sanctioned. So here's what happened. I did both. And then the year that they were going to sanction it, our AD said, "You can't do both anymore. I'm stepping in for your own sanity. You won't make the choice yourself, so you got to pick one." And I picked to go with the boys. So the first sanctioned tournament, I was coaching boys, and the guy who coached the girls, just after a year, he's like, "I can't do this as a head coach." He's like, "I like to still be involved." He's an engineer at Honda. He's like, "I just can't do both." And I found myself that year when I was back to just coaching the boys. Not that I wasn't present, not that we didn't have a good team, not that I wasn't enjoying what I was doing, but I just found myself, I felt like I had helped really get something going, and I missed that. And so when the opportunity came back up, I decided to make the switch over to coaching girls. And my younger brother, Nate, who's a 98er, he took over the head coaching job. And so he's coaching the boys, and I'm coaching the girls.
Okay. So I thought that was your brother. He's like the tall, skinny guy, right? Was he
Yeah.
the kicker?
What's that?
The kicker?
No, no, that's Garrett. He's like 01.
Oh,
Uh,
one. Okay.
Nate would have wrestled Tate a lot, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so. Growing up, because once Tate, see, 96.
96. Yeah.
I think Nate and Tate wrestled each other a few times.
Okay. Here's
So
what's wild. Marysville was the same size as Oak Harbor ish
yeah,
in the 80s and 90s. And now, what do you have a graduating class at Marysville?
470.
Oak Harbor's right at around 100 or probably just below.
Well, Marysville's first state finalist was against 3 times Greg Goad. So Chapman
Oh,
Glow,
really?
yeah. So I grew up a coach's kid, so I can remember every state tournament back to like 84, 80, 80, yeah, 84, and then I think it was 85 or 86. Greg Goode was going for his third state title, and Chad Glow made the finals, and they almost stopped it for running out of blood time. I mean, he got the doors blown off him, but he was the first guy to make the finals for us down at St. John's. So,
And then my brother Ferd had Brett Grove, who was a
oh yeah,
two-time state placer at his weight.
yeah, he was like third and fifth maybe. Wrestled down at Miami before they cut their program.
And then Kelly Croy is a longtime teacher, was a longtime teacher. Now he's at Port Clinton. He is a Marysville Monarch.
Yeah. It's a small. I mean, we talked about the Borjas, Rob, his
Yeah,
daughter's on our team and
state qualifier for Oak Harbor.
yeah. Yep.
That's wild, man. What a that's so crazy that
So
there's
the wrestling world is a small world, man.
very small. I'll tell you what, if you're a good guy or a bad guy or you're a scumbag or you're whatever you are, people are gonna know pretty immediately about you
Yeah.
in the wrestling world. People are gonna
Yeah.
know if you're this, that, or the other, and they're gonna know with one or two different phone calls or texts or conversations in person with people, they're gonna figure you out pretty quick in the sport because there's nowhere to hide and it's a small world to your point.
Yeah. That's what
Uh,
makes it, I mean, it's what makes it it's what keeps you in. Like it's certain, like that's one of the things I enjoyed about coaching. It's probably what I miss on the boys' side is it's a different fraternity of coaches. It's the guys I would see at Brecksville every year. Just guys, similar guys who glutton for punishment are doing the same things, and that's starting to grow on the girls' side. But for a while there was a lot of guys that we wrestled with at Kent who were in coaching. So a couple of times a year you'd see some of those guys. So it's fun. But yeah, it is a small world.
So making the choice, how hard was it for you to jump over? Because I know in talking to Nicole, and it's wild that you and Nicola have a similar origin story in the sense of you coached boys, then you switched over to coaching girls. I think you coached boys wrestling longer than he did. It
Yeah.
feels about right or about the same amount of time.
Yeah, yeah, just a little different. I mean, I was in one place the whole time.
Yes.
I came back to coach my brothers for a couple of years, and then I was going to get out of coaching, and that was 22 years ago. So, um,
Oh my God, dude.
you
Hey,
know,
it went like that, didn't it?
Blake, yes, it did. Like for me, it was a really tough decision. Part of the reason it was tough is I have a son who's a seventh grader, and he's really enjoying wrestling more now than he did 4 or 5 years ago or 2 3 years ago when I made that decision. But that was the hard part for me is like our worlds, and it doesn't mean it's a forever thing, right? But like I got to see him wrestle his duels during the week, but I didn't really get to see too many of his tournaments because we're competing. Now, if I was coaching high school boys, it'd be the same thing. But in a few years when he's in high school, it'd be a little different. I'll be honest, I think it's actually helped him without the proposition of me being his coach. I think he and I have a better relationship, not trying to be the guy who's going to coach him. So that wasn't the driving force, but I think it's been an added benefit.
It's like what you're saying. That's an interesting dynamic when dad is coach. It's a very interesting thing, and it's obviously hard for you to put one hat on, take the other off. It's just super hard to be dad, coach. You're obviously more invested, emotionally invested, and that's just got to be hard. And I haven't had to do it yet, so
Well, I lived it. I mean, my dad was my coach, and I have four younger brothers. We're a big family like you guys, and I wouldn't say any one of the five of us handled it the same way. So, it's interesting. I get to be more cheerleader now and just encourage him and support him. And he started going to Morons. So, again, the world gets smaller of places where people's paths cross over. But no, he's doing really well. And then, my daughter, I never thought would wrestle, and she started wrestling last year, and she got her first ever win about 2 weeks ago after,
no way.
yeah, oh yeah, you
Congratulations.
would. So it's 16-19 overtime. Um, yeah, it was wild.
Grand fashion. She did it in grand
Yeah,
style, the
but
Andrews way.
yeah, but it was like when you talk about like why do you make the switch? Like just seeing the community that those girls on our team create for one another, it's just different. I think probably if you said like what was the thing that put you over the edge to coaching girls is we all know that high school girls are more emotionally intelligent than high school boys. That is not a criticism, that's just a fact. And so coming up in those first few teams of girls who were surviving in the boys' practice and surviving in an environment that maybe not everybody wanted them there, the way they could like speak to how it changed them, not just on the wrestling mat, but like walking the halls with more confidence and their belief that they could do hard things. Like I left feeling like every kid should have this opportunity. And if I'm in a position to help create that for a group of high school girls in Marysville, Ohio, then, that's what I was called to do. And so I don't mean that as like pat myself on the back, but that's really what it was, is just trying to create that opportunity for kids.
Yeah, and it's just like the switch over. Obviously, you have a daughter that's doing it now, and you have a son. You're like torn in both worlds, man. It's wild to think that you've got these two things that you're juggling right now. But eventually, do you think when your son gets back in, would you switch over, or are you going to stay where you're at?
I really like what I'm doing right now. And like I said, I get the opportunity to just be dad with him. I think the hard part, and we have, gosh, I was counting today. I think we have 5 or 6 coaches that help us on the girls' side. So, if it gets to the point where I got to take a step back, or I have people that I trust that I can go watch him wrestle if there's a big tournament or something like that, I think I'd rather do that than go back to coaching him. I trust my brother. I trust the other coaches around him. So, like I said, I think it's been good for him to not have that pressure of like dad's my coach. He gets to do, I get to see that he likes wrestling because he likes not wrestling, not because he feels like he's supposed to wrestle because he's in Andrews at Marysville. Um, I know that might sound silly, but
Is he qualified for OAC or anything like that? Like where would
no, he
level?
he was, I think, 1-2 or 2-2 at the only TNG qualifier. He's gotten better than what he had done previously, and he's just like, you know what, I just want to keep practicing. He's like, I tried it, I can tell I'm getting better. And like I said, he started going to Moran's this year, and Moran's really big on practice, not compete. So he's kind of buying into that a little bit. So
I think
he's
that's the right
definitely getting
model.
he's
I like
definitely
that
getting
model.
better. Oh, absolutely.
I'm a fan of that model. I don't really think you need to compete all that often. I think you just got to be around the sport. Obviously, Matt Time's big for that. I don't think I'm not a big believer in the competition. So if my kids were to come back from basketball to
Yeah.
wrestling, we're not going to compete a bunch. They're not going to compete a bunch. Um, they would just be in a wrestling room playing games, having fun, being around friends. And I don't know if that's ever going to happen, right? But I'm
Yeah.
just not a firm believer in it's a lot of miles on them, that's a lot. I think that's a lot. And it works for some kids, right? I
I
just
mean,
don't.
every kid's wired differently.
Yeah.
I think I quote you all the time. Like, I don't know if I can make my kid love it, but I know I can make him hate it.
Yep.
And
Real
yeah,
easy.
yeah. And so, I know you were talking to Brian about infrastructure and stuff like that. And so we have a girls only youth practice, and we got about 35 kids from kindergarten through 5th or 6th grade. And we just tell them, like, if it's your first year wrestling, you shouldn't compete. Like we have these rec league matches, but honestly, like just come to practice, enjoy coming to practice, and we put a lot of emphasis on make it enjoyable, building them up, teaching them some skills, and if they like it, they'll keep coming back. And that's what the philosophy we're going with on the youth side. And similar in the middle school, like right now there's still this phase of like pulling kids out of the hallway and teaching them a stance and teaching them what a double leg is. Like as good as our team is, we were talking about like district draws the other day, and they're like, "Wait, now how does a bracket work?" I was like, "You got to be kidding me! You've wrestled 40 matches. Like you've been to the state tournament. Like what do you mean? How does a bracket work?" So sometimes when you're in the weeds of it, you forget how new even the experienced girls are to the sport.
It's crazy to think that, like, how new it is, and it's in its infancy. And it's like we've had two champs, right? We've had Harrison and we have had Orange.
Yeah.
What do you think it's going to take for you to be the third champs in OHSA history for girls wrestling in 2025 or 2026 or whenever it happens? What's it going to take?
Yeah, I mean, I look at I probably don't dig into the numbers as much as some other people. You just if you kind of gloss over it, every team that's won it, whether that's the sanctioned tournament or the tournament before that, has had at least 3 girls in the top three. So, there's more math to it than that, and the teams keep getting better. But it's just like I mean, it's pretty simple math. Like you get 26 points if you're in the finals. You gotta, you can't. Last year we were fourth, and we had 6 placers, but we had a second, a fourth, and a bunch of sevenths. So those sevenths are great, and they're on the podium, and the kids feel good about it. But they're not scoring points. So you got to get kids in those top three. So I think we got some girls who are in the mix to do it. I think we need some help. We need some people around the state to knock off a couple of those orange girls, or get them placing a little lower. But we really are just trying to focus on like ourselves because we can't control all that.
So here's the deal. You're always going to be dealing with Harrison, Orange, probably even Alliance for that matter. You're going to be dealing with these teams because they're going to be in your division when it even does split, if it does, and it's probably going to. Obviously, progress, it's exploding in growth.
Yeah,
Why not add another division? But you're always going to be dealing with the best teams, right?
yeah,
Um, there's no room for error, man. You guys were at the Ironman tournament,
yeah.
and that was unreal. You had finalists. They had finalists. It was just crazy changing of like Cleveland,
Oh
Tennessee,
yeah,
Oklahoma, Orange. You guys are right there in the mix. You girls are right there in the mix. What is that like, and how do you deal with these teams that are already established powers, and how do you overtake that? Like, we know the formula, right? It's finalists. We get
yeah,
that. Top three are finalists, right?
yeah.
But it's only gonna get better.
I
You
mean,
got
it's
a
gonna get.
really good pool of coaches, and it's gonna explode in growth. I
Yep.
mean, yeah, it's gonna be hard.
Yeah. I mean, it's you're right. Even if it splits, the teams that are in play are still going to continue to be in play. So, it really comes back to like development and recruitment and getting kids in it earlier, even if they're not competing, just understanding the sport. And um, like I told our girls before we went into the state duels, I said, yeah, I want to win because I want you guys to have that experience. Like, I want you to be able to say like we were the best, we were state champs that weekend. But in the end, it's just a block of wood. It's just a trophy. Like it's more of it is like the experiences you get going into it. The way you think back and you see the pictures of your teammates encourage yourselves on the bench, and doesn't mean that we're not competitive, but like we're still gonna be doing the same things, chop wood, carry water, that book, whatever. Like we're still gonna be doing the same things the next day. Um, it's fun to try to like start making improvements and trying to build those skills. And the good girls just keep getting better, and you're gonna have people moving around, and as you have programs that are successful, they're gonna draw in just like boys Division 1 draws people in. Massillon Perry gets guys that show up, and Perrysburg's got guys that move down, and that's going to continue to happen. So we're just like I said, we're trying to build from the ground up. Like I said, I was at a youth practice tonight from 6 to 7, just trying to got a handful of girls who are going to do some postseason youth stuff. Got to have an environment for it. We don't have the established youth coaches that some other girls programs do. We have about 150 kids in our youth program, boys and girls, and this is the first year we split out and said we're just going to do a girls only practice. And there's a little pushback at first, but I think they saw improvement, the parents saw improvement, and they had a good time. So I think it helped.
You've mentioned that twice now. That's crazy. That means your numbers are really, really, really up there, and it necessitates separating the boys from the girls because you have so many bodies in the room at that point. So many people in the room, dude. There's
Yeah,
like it gets to the point where you can't. It's no longer. It's counterproductive to have 135. Let's say you do 3 sessions, right?
yeah, we did 4 sessions this year. We did
Right, right. Like I mean, people don't understand bodies in a room
yeah,
matter. There's only
yeah.
so much mat space.
Well, and I would say this to any of our youth coaches, like I really do not think it was like intentionally a slight, but like if you're, Billy Smith and your son's wrestling and youth practice and you're a youth coach, you're there helping out, you're probably, I don't think anybody had a negative feeling about girls youth wrestlers being in the practice room, but they got kind of neglected. Not out of intention, just by default, because some dads aren't used to working with girls or they're focused on their own kid or whatever else. So splitting it out gave us the opportunity to have a focused environment for those kids. And like I said, they can't be a second year wrestler if they quit after their first year. So just trying to keep them involved.
Looking at it coming down the stretch here, you only do 2 steps, whereas the boys do sectional, district, state, right?
No, no, we had sectional district state.
Sorry, sectional. Explain that to me. Explain your
Yeah,
level. Explain your number.
yeah, so this is I'll see if I can find it. This is what was wild. You were talking about the explosion. And a couple people put out the graphic, and this is just entries into the postseason. This is not total hydration test, total kids who wrestled in Ohio this year, right? But the very first year, and we thought it was crazy. In 2020, there was 234 girls at the state tournament, open entry tournament. The next year it was 322. And I stumbled across this because we got a girl who was a state qualifier the first sanction year, and then she missed all last year for a surgery for on her leg. So in 2023, there were 789 girls that entered the postseason, right? This year, 1,704. So in 2 years, there's been 1,000 more girls who entered the postseason. Not talking about Russell and Ohio, were on a roster in a weight class and entered at the sectional tournament.
Its growth has been in the postseason 2.5 times
Yeah,
in 2 years.
yeah.
Dude, that's insane. So they'll add a
So,
division. They'll add a division. They're gonna have to. It's just how it is, man.
so
And that
my mad scientist, this is where my mad scientist thought goes. They've already seen that four divisions financially doesn't have much more cost, but they have more revenue. They've added divisions in almost every other sport, even though the boys do not really facilitate, like they don't, numbers are back up a little bit, but they've been shrinking historically. I think they'll go to four divisions for boys, keep those at the Schottenstein Center, and then look for an alternative location for two divisions for the girls. And then my pitch would be, if anybody listened to me, start the season 2 weeks earlier, just like girls and boys basketball are staggered, and then have the girls' season be done before the boys' season, whether that's at the Nutter Center, somewhere UD, Cavelli, wherever. Um, but I don't think you can get five divisions in the Schottenstein Center. So
you'd have to stagger it and do like a 4-day event or a 5-day event, or you did
correct.
like I
And I
think
will, t
it does some crazy thing that's like 5 days or something.
well, and that's been, having the opportunity to work with the Coaches Association, that's the biggest thing people request is like, man, our state tournament's so late. With the COVID year, we were one of only two states that didn't get our state tournament in.
It's,
But
it's insane.
so so much,
Listen, how late we have it is absolutely insane, and
but
it's
the
like gotta change.
but the driving factor is the Schottenstein Center. They basically said, if you
I
don't get
don't
this when you get
care
it,
about the Schottenstein Center at all.
I'm
I
not.
want it. Listen, go to Nationwide Arena, go to St. John. I don't know, man. I like
You won't get any
hang
complaints
up
from
on that
me.
is insane.
You won't get any complaints from me, but that's the hang up. And the perception of the OHSA office is that everybody wants it to be at the shot. I mean, I know 2 years ago we had a different sports administrator and he was starting to look into what used to be the Q. What is that?
Rocket. It's Rocket.
Rocket. Yeah. They wanted to go up and look when they had NCAAs and see like could we do the state tournament here? How many mats can we get down? What does it look like? And people, there's Bruce Mauer's been running the state tournament for a really long time. So he kind of calls the shots on a lot of that stuff. So I think it's just going to get to the point where it can no longer be maintained. And it's also, I mean, think about this: the girls' district tournament this Sunday is going to be a 1 day, 16-person bracket, right? Boys' districts are 2 days, neither here nor there. The state tournament is a 16-person bracket stretched across 3 days, right? Like
So
we,
it's like
we we do it for pomp and circumstance, but like it's 3 days. You're wrestling two matches a day.
it's, it's nutty. It's like
Yeah.
yeah, and then they keep coming, bringing them back, and dude, it's all just such a. I'm not super pumped about it, and everybody thinks it's great. I don't think it's great. I
Yeah.
don't think it's great. It doesn't pump me up. I don't get excited to go there. I'm like, yeah, this gives me anxiety. They could run this totally different. This could be a better setup. They could have less divisions, more whatever. My thing is like the arena is not full of fans. So have it in an appropriate sized arena for your fan base,
Yeah.
right? I mean, am I wrong there?
No, they get, the hang up, I think, from our conversations are the 10 mats because the way the program's written right now, program meaning like rounds and matches and that kind of stuff, is that you can do a true double elimination. This isn't 1996 and there's a carry through system. And if your first round opponent beats you and loses, you're out of the tournament. The 10 mats is I guess required from a timing standpoint to get a true double elimination tournament for all three, now four divisions. It's like anything else. You want change, you're going to have to give up something to get something else. So would people in Ohio give up true double elimination? Would they give up parade of champions and all four finalists wrestling at the same time? Like that's where I think you could go 4 days and split it and just do the first 2 days are Division One and Division Two, and the second 2 days is Division Three and girls, and you rotate the girls year by year alongside a different division because there's a lot of coaches who are still got their toes in both, and But again, people have to decide that they really want to change, and I don't know that that's where we are.
I've never been this irritated talking to somebody.
I'm
It's like
sorry.
so irritating, dude. It
I
like enrages me. I'm like,
Yeah,
just stop with the shot. The Schottenstein's not that great. They rip the fans' faces off. You're paying $12 for a pop or something. It's nuts. It's yeah, I get it. It's a Buckeye Nation and Ohio State and Columbus, the old college town. But come
yeah,
on,
but
man,
I
it's a
think I think wrestling's the only, maybe track and field might be the only sports that are still on an OSU.
no track was in Dayton this last year.
Okay, well then wrestling might be the only one. Maybe golf. Maybe they play at Scarlet and Gray.
Sure.
But they, there was a time, from my understanding, where part of the driving force was OSU wanted to get these prospective students on their campus because they didn't have a great academic reputation. Now they're turning people away.
Now they
So
don't care.
right.
They don't care about that at all. It's so competitive to get in there. Ohio
Yeah.
State does not care about the OHSA. They have a world, they have a global recruiting base. I understand football's not really global. Got it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything else, they have a global reach
Yeah.
in recruiting for any sport they want to recruit.
Yeah.
It's
Sounds like the Zeb Miller needs to submit his plan to HSA. Here's how
nah,
we're
I
going
just don't
to.
care. I'll just listen. If my kids don't wrestle and when my nephews are done and somebody buys GoHioCast, I just won't go anymore.
Yeah.
I just won't go anymore. I just
Well, it's interesting. Like like I said, I can remember going to the state tournament from the time I was like 5 years old. And it's amazing, like, and I don't mean this negatively, but outside the Marysville kids and like the Marcus Blazes of the world, in 2 years, I've really lost touch with like the ins and outs of the weight classes and who's who. And I know the perennial teams, but it doesn't take that long to get removed from it. You
no,
know,
no.
it
And
really
listen,
doesn't. And I would have
Mike
never guessed
Tolar.
that.
Yeah, talking to Mike Tolar, he's like, I was like, hey, Mike, let's go watch some wrestling or something. He's like, man, I'm just so far removed from it.
Yeah,
I just don't. I don't know. They don't. Him and Nick Namath, they met us for a dual meet. Matt Ramos is out killing some Kent State guy, and they're like, I'm like, that's the guy who's pinned Spencer Lee, and they're like, oh, we know
oh,
about that. It was on
yeah,
Sports Center, right?
yeah,
But like otherwise, they're like, yeah, they're so detached from it. Normally, I got to give them like cliff notes, right?
yeah,
Hey, it's what's going on here. Here's who these guys are, and he's like, they're like, oh, sweet, thanks. We didn't know who to expect or how good these guys are, and I'm like, yeah, this guy's an Ohio State champ for us. That guy, yeah, he transferred in from Minnesota. Or, like I had to explain
yeah,
it. Once you're removed from it, though, it's like it's quick.
yeah.
It
Hey, so what's your take? I've talked to Jimmy a lot, like, and I know he gave me his version of Kent's hold up on possibly adding women's wrestling. What do you think? You think it's going to happen? You think this whole revenue sharing and NIL and everything else
yeah,
is
all
going to kill
that,
everybody?
dude. This opting in, opting out, whether revenue share, whether not revenue share, whether you're going to have a NIL collective, because NIL collective is how they're paying for athletes at this
Yeah,
point. Dude, are all the sports going to go to club? Are
yeah. I mean, it kills me, but I think that it's going to be a D2, D3 model. I really do. I mean,
yeah,
there's going to be 25 Division I
yep. It'll be like men's
programs.
gymnastics.
Exactly. And look what just happened to men's gymnastics at Ohio State. It's a non-scholarship sport.
Yeah, and that's like where a lot of this is going.
Yeah.
A lot of this is going literally that direction. And I believe Kent State in all their meetings, from what I hear, it's talked about every day. And they're talking about what are we going to do? Are we going to go to a club model? That's essentially what it is. But they can still, you and I can still pay our money to have them go get good athletes, right?
Yeah.
That's probably not going to change, right? The once you open that door, there ain't no one ringing that bell, dude. It's over.
Nope. Nope.
You're gonna have you're gonna have Jax Forrest. You're gonna have Bo Bassett. You're gonna have Faith Christian
Yeah.
Academies. Half their team, they're gonna go and they're gonna make six figures, and that's how it's gonna be. Spencer Lee would have made a lot in college, right? Starachi's making over $1 million allegedly. I don't know that. Carter would probably be forthright with some information, right? But it is they've opened the door and it is not swinging shut.
No, it makes me, and I think about like I was a below average college wrestler, but it was a foundational experience in like my growing up, like the sport of wrestling, but then also being at Kent and just it's just made me part of who I am. And so to think about just removing that from I mean, that's how I met my wife,
Yep.
like,
Same.
it's just like, and again, I get that that can't be the driving force, but I never felt like Kent State was Ohio State or Penn State where it's the driving force. I felt like it was a part of the educational experience for the kids who were on that level, and now it's just like, will that even be a thing?
Yeah. And the
You
other
think what's
thing is
happening?
the D2 model, man, the D2 model is like where it's at right now. I will tell you that because obviously I follow my nephew Wyatt wrestles for Grand Valley. He was an All-American last year.
Yeah.
Wyatt started out his first 2 years at App State, and I was Wyatt had a traumatic injury as like a middle schooler. He blew his hand off and blew some fingers off, so he's had some wear and tear on his body. Right?
Hmm.
They build him a new thumb, and he's had a lot. He's gone through a lot, and that
Yeah.
that grind to that D1, I was like, hey Wyatt, I feel like you're probably a D2 guy. Tippen's right there. It's 25 minutes, and he went to Boone. He followed his cousin Ian to Boone, and Ian was his coach. And originally, when Ian Miller was a coach at Oregon State, Wyatt wanted to go to Oregon State, right? Has a great year. He's undefeated senior, 48-0, pins again in the state finals. I'm a D1 guy. He went and he learned some tough things and he learned how to wrestle, and there was some positive for him, right? Going to a D1. But ultimately, when Joey Simcoe brought him back and he got in the portal and he left, and now everything is pretty good for him, right? When his body holds up. But like the D2 model from him would have been great from the rip.
Yeah.
I think he needed the D1 thing. But the model for the D2s, man, to see what some of them are putting into it is insane. If you go to Grand Valley State University, Shawn, you won't believe it.
Yeah.
You will be like, oh, that they will compete right away. This is their first year. They'll be in the mix in the next 2, 3 years to win the team title.
Yeah. It's
It's
wild.
crazy. It's crazy.
Even some of the D3 schools.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. North Central.
Like there's some D3 schools that like their facilities are on point, their alumni base is huge. It's a different recruiting model because you got to recruit people either have no money or more money than they know what to do with.
Yes. Well, it's like
But
the Ivy League model. It's the
yeah,
Ivy League, the need-based model
yep.
with the FAFSA and all that. It's like the Ivy League. Literally, what you just said is how you have to recruit in the Ivy League. You have to recruit based on their FAFSA, their parents' income, because there are no athletic scholarships in the Ivy Leagues, as there are no athletic scholarships in NCAA D3.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand the model, and they're like, "Oh yeah, are they going to give me a full ride?" And I'm like, "Well, it doesn't work like that." And the way that those are set up is a lot of them want you to be able to donate back what they gave you in grant and aid that is not to be paid back. You know
Right.
that's their model, right? Did you know that?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, we had Austin Farr, who was a state champ for us back in 13, went to Brown. Got an Ivy League education. Then Jake Marsh, who was a runner-up, graduated maybe in 19, lost to Carr when Carr got his fourth. He went to Princeton. Never really cracked the lineup. Beat Julian Ramirez in a duel, but never really cracked the lineup consistently. Ended up getting his post grad at Morgan State with Kenny Monday. But they both did the Ivy League thing, and they both were they were in a situation where they didn't pay a whole lot to go, and now that's like generational change.
Yeah.
So
It's upward social mobility, professional mobility, and just life in general. And that the biggest thing I would say about the Ivies and your elite D3s, your NYUs, your University of Chicago, your Case Western Reserve, MIT, right? Like Coast Guard
mhm.
Academy, you're paying for and or being paid or grant and aid or whatever they're giving you,
Yeah,
relief scholarship, whatever it may be. You're paying for the network there.
yeah.
The network you're building there is the
Our
people that those guys Farr and Marsh wrestled with. That's what you're paying for.
Well, my good friend who used to be our head football coach, his son's playing football at Columbia. They have a draft. The alumni draft you when you come in your field, and spend 4 years mentoring you, networking with you, and connecting you, so that when you go out, you literally go right into some type of job connection, as long as you're like do what you're supposed to do in those 4 years in school.
Yeah.
It's
And I talked
wild.
to Kolodzik. I talked to Kolodzik at the Olympic trials, and his brother's doing finance, and I believe he was going into med school. And I'm just like, I can't believe that you guys are wrestlers. You're not even like knuckle draggers or cavemen, because we got a fair amount of that too.
Yeah, yep, we do.
We got a fair amount of that. We got a fair amount of blue collar madness, which isn't bad, man. It used to just be an all blue collar sport. You do realize that, right?
Yeah, I mean, but that's where the club scene has changed things, because
Correct.
now it's like if you don't have the means, it's hard for you to keep up. I mean, the model of like, well, all you have to have is a pair of shoes and a wrestling mat and someone to wrestle with. You can progress to a certain extent, but a lot of these elite top level kids are fully invested in clubs, and there's a cost that goes with that, and they're
Yep.
traveling all over, and not just to the Perrysburg qualifier. They're going to the U.S. Open, and it's a completely, in my mind, it's a completely different sport from when you and I came up in it.
Yeah.
And I still
Wrestle.
love it. I still love
Yeah.
the sport, but it's completely different.
Yeah. They're wrestling in Vegas at least once a year, right?
Yep.
Or wrestling in Reno. They're wrestling in Tulsa. They're wrestling in just so many huge events. Tulsa's twice a year now because it's
Yeah.
kickoff in Tulsa.
Yep.
And Reno Worlds, and then Vegas has always got multiple U.S. Open type events there,
Yep.
age level world team trials. They got to travel to the Spire now. They got to come to Ohio for some events. They're going all over, man. And like you're saying, to the point of, it's a resource. It's not lacrosse. It's not field hockey. It's not hockey. We understand that, right? It's not travel baseball, but it's something that used to not even be in the realm of any of that stuff.
Correct. In fact, I used to turn my nose up at all of the club sports. I used to be frustrated with like, I can't believe you're in club soccer. I can't believe you play couple. And it's like it was only a matter of time. And then, kind of the club scene, everybody sees the monetization of sport and says, well, I really like wrestling. I don't want to be a teacher anymore, or I didn't go into teaching. I want to keep coaching.
Yeah,
Let me start a business doing the thing I like to do. And
it's
there
a
are some
thing.
people, there are people who are really good at it.
Yep, it's a thing. I was trying to, and this is kind of, I'll go a little bit, I'll go to another level actually. I was trying to explain reclassing
Oh my gosh.
to my sons the other day. They looked at me as though there was a gigantic horn growing out of my head that was trying to stab them in the face. They were like, why would we go to another grade or go to online school for a year and not be with our friends?
Yeah.
And Shawn, it's not insane. It's what a lot of people are doing to gain a competitive edge.
Well, it might still be insane, but it's not uncommon.
Okay. It's less insane than it used to be.
Yes, I'll give you
It's
that.
over, hold on. It's Overton window. It's
Yeah.
Overton window. When you shift stuff
Yep.
and things become more normalized. I don't know if you
Yeah.
know Overton.
Yeah.
Um, it's Overton window. It's more acceptable.
Yep.
My wife went to the Orville Hall of Fame for the inductees. Girls, she coached in volleyball. Two of her former athletes, one I want to say was North Carolina, another one was California. Both their kids were like seventh and eighth graders. One of their sons was 6'8" in eighth grade, and you can play, I think it's North Carolina. You can play in the high school, right? It's like North
Yeah.
Dakota, New
Yeah.
York does it.
Eighth grade, Kentucky wrestling. Eighth
Yeah,
grade.
yeah, yeah. Um, they're reclassing him as an eighth grader, and he's gonna play on the varsity. But he's the argument for, well, you're already 6'8", dude.
Yeah.
You already got all of it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I was like, it was a real thing, and I was like, and then I think the kid that was the girl she coached, whose son made, I want to say California. He was like 6'6" or something, and he
Yeah.
was a seventh grader.
Well, that's was it Spencer Moore, the reclassified, graduated early? I mean, you see the world of all the holdbacks, and then you get people like randomly jumping forward a year.
He used to you North Carolina guy, right?
Yeah, Kentucky
Yeah,
kid.
UNC guy. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're gonna have some of that too. And then the quarterback for Ole Miss is the same way.
It's wild.
Ole Miss's quarterback graduated high school at like 16.
Yeah, but if you're the Ole Miss quarterback, that NIL deal, I mean, like,
He
what do
keeps
they?
making millions.
Yeah, what do they say? Like, kids are staying in college longer because they're making more than the
Yes,
rookie minimums. I mean,
the rookie contracts kind of screw him.
yeah. And I know our conversation, like, this has been all over left field, but I can sit and talk all this stuff all day long. It's just, it's wild. It's parents are crazy.
Give me your 5-year plan for Marysville girls wrestling. Where will we be in Ohio in 5 years with girls wrestling? Will we have? I know we're gonna have two divisions. It's a silly question.
Yeah.
Will we have three divisions? Like what?
I don't think we'll have three. So this year, so you asked it earlier. They had like this pre-regional, regional model because it was emerging sport. State anything that's considered a regional is run by this OHSAA, right? So this is why in certain sports it goes like sectional, district, regional, state. Regions and above are run by the state association. Sectionals and districts are ran by district athletic boards. So a year ago, OHSAA ran everything soup to nuts, and they just said we can't do it. We're passing it down. District athletic boards figure it out. So last year there was what they called pre-regional, regional, state. The first round was substantially smaller, but there was three levels. This year it mirrors the boys. It's sectionals, district, state. It's very similar to some of the D3 boys sectionals. Like we hosted a sectional, and majority of the weights were 8 to 10, and then like you'd have a weight with two, right? Like 235 was one where there was only two, but that was the only weight. The rest of them were 8 to 10. I think that what I've heard is they want at least 2 years of data where the district athletic boards are running it before they're going to consider if there is need for a second division. So that means this year and next year at the minimum, the earliest would be whatever that is, 27 state tournament.
7, yeah.
So
Wow.
for us, I mean, like I said, I want to win. I want to compete. I want to, we try to get as many of our girls in Fargo and wrestling year round that want to wrestle. I think we had 5 girls on the duels teams last year between U14, U16, and juniors. And then I think we had 6 girls go and wrestle at Fargo. None of them AA'd, but there's something about just having a purpose to train. I think it's, I might get ridiculed for saying this. We have to provide a really good camp environment for it to make sense financially because you can go out and go 0-2 and wrestle less than 2 minutes of total wrestling time and spend whatever the bill was last year, like $1,800.
Oh
And yeah,
wow.
yeah, or 1,500, whatever it was. And you have that life experience. To me, I've always tried to rationalize and say, yeah, but if you're getting 3 days of training camp with some of the best girls and you got a reason to train, maybe it makes sense. I don't know if we're there. I think we have to keep evaluating like how do we make sure that the right girls are going and not limit them because the pathway to qualify is the same as the boys, but the numbers are less. So you can go to Central Regional, you place top 6, you make your state's Fargo team, and maybe there's 8 girls at Central Regional, so you win a match and you make the Fargo team. So,
Wow.
but anyway, so yeah, so for us, it's just building the numbers early, trying to get a foundation, so that they love the sport, they want to come back to it. They're having fun when they're at practice, teaching them how to compete, um, and keep chasing these teams who finished ahead of us.
Who are your returning state placers for Marysville?
So Cami Lang was a state runner-up last year. Um, she's at 110. Desi Lee was fourth. She went up to 235 last year because she thought that was the best chance with Savannah Isaac at 90. I think she could have won it. She lost in the semis, and then lost for third and fourth. She's back at 190. Kara Lang's at 140. She was a placer last year. Addie Lyon was a placer at 35. Lauren Mobley was a qualifier last year. She's at 25. Katie Hammersmith was a qualifier 2 years ago. She's the one that missed last year with injury. I'm missing somebody else in there. Lori Grimes, she was third at Woman of Ironman. She's ranked like top 2 in the state at 155. So we got some horses. The thing is, some of our best girls are at the deepest weights. So we just gotta perform.
How many Langs do you have on the team?
2. Their older sister was a champ, 2-time champ. Once she won it in the first sanction year, and she won it her sophomore year in the coach association. And actually, she's ranked like fourth in the country. She's wrestling for Iowa right now.
She's a starter for Iowa.
Yeah, the 124. She's having an awesome year. She wrestled more matches than anybody else in the Iowa lineup this year.
Really?
Yeah, she's doing awesome.
How many Lang girls are there total?
Four. There's Colby's like a third grader, so she hasn't started wrestling yet.
There's
But
more.
yeah.
Any boys?
Nope.
No boys. Interesting.
Yeah.
Uh, what's that like coaching them? Their dad was elite coach at Graham.
Yep.
It's Rudis now. What's it like coaching someone like Coach Lang's kids who Jesse Lang knows a lot about the sport of wrestling. He's a multiple time state champ, wrestled for the Buckeyes, and then obviously he runs Rudis now. What's it like coaching his daughters?
I feel like it's pretty interesting. It's exactly like you would imagine, right? You got three siblings, three sisters. They're all a little bit different, and I think I have a really good relationship with each one of them. Their wrestling's different. The way their coach is different. Jesse's very hard on them, but he also respects me as a coach. And there's a lot of times we work on stuff together. And he can't help himself but coach from the sidelines. But half the people in the gym are coaching from the sidelines. So I don't think that's unique to him.
He's not in a chair. He never sits in a chair.
Nope. He's loud enough. You might think he's sitting in the chair, but
Got it.
yeah.
I didn't know he didn't. I thought maybe he sat in the chair for maybe the older daughter, or I had no idea.
We talked about it a few different times, and I think he knows that he's so busy with work, and he knows that so much of coaching comes down to being in the room that, yeah, he could corner them, but he's not going to be in the room day to day, and just didn't feel like that was right-minded.
I have technique videos of him showing like a bunch of different techniques from Jordan's camp from like probably 12, 13 years ago,
Yeah,
14 years ago, whenever it was. He has impeccable technique. You should check it. Seriously, one
yeah,
of
he's
them,
one of the best.
yeah, watch some of the technique. I'll send it to you. He's got a couple different ones that are um like videos where the technique is impeccable and really good technician, explains things really well. Um and yeah, now it's crazy because they still get watched a lot because it's really good technique, right?
Yeah,
And it's like to think that that guy doesn't really coach wrestling in a corner anymore, like he did at Graham, and he runs a company is different, right? Different to think of.
yeah.
But what's the relationship like when you have the guy who runs the company, Rudis, and he has multiple daughters in your program? Do you guys get free reign on Rudis stuff? How's that work?
They've been very supportive of us. It's not free reign on stuff, but they take care of us. They got us some warm-up jackets and some singlets. They're really, really generous. They want to make sure that, every kid who needs, like, if you need a pair of shoes, they'll get you a pair of shoes. We're in a really tough spot this year with levy stuff. Our pay to play went way up. And they stepped up and wanted to make sure that they created some financial assistance grants for kids who were going to not wrestle because pay to play went from 200 to 575.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, so
Wow.
they've been really, really good to us, and we try to make it a partnership, like especially early on. Like they've had the opportunity now to kind of to get content in different places, but early on they would use a lot of our wrestling room or our weight room to get content or do technique videos when they were doing those or stuff with their athletes. So it's not just a handout. Obviously we're great, really, really grateful that they're here in town and they want to help support us.
So, didn't your wife work for them for a little bit?
She stitle does.
The wife still works for Rudis? I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
She taught for a minute.
Yep. 10 years and then got out of it.
Minute, a decade, sorry. It's a little
Yeah. Well,
a minute.
she just long enough to, she wasn't in education at Kent and then she got her teaching license and taught for 10 years and then decided, just wasn't something she could do forever. And I introduced her to Jesse at the grocery store and they talked for a while and he's like, come talk to me. And so she's been with the company for, gosh, I don't know how long it's now, but I think she was employee 17. Um, I think there's not too many people that have been there longer than her at this point.
Wow, wow. So you're really close to him, like even closer than I even kind of
It,
painted earlier, like coaching on the Lang daughters. Wow.
it's so their office is I think Meredith's commute's like 6 minutes.
Yeah, because their world headquarters is Marysville.
Correct. Yeah, and they got a warehouse 20 minutes north of us.
Wow. That's crazy. I didn't realize all that. where do you go from here? Will you cross back over? Will you double up and become a lunatic again when your son gets in high school?
I don't think I'll ever cross back and do both unless I was like an assistant to both. But I don't think that I would even really want to do that. I mean, we're the way we're set up right now, like our school district only has two wrestling spaces. So like the high school, the traditional high school where you've been before for events, that there's a two-mat wrestling room there and they run high school boys, middle school boys, and a couple youth practices out of that. And then what was our high school before? We have a girls wrestling room space and we run high school practice, middle school practices, girls youth and introductory youth out of that. So it's just it's just always there's just always somebody in a practice space. I just don't think it's reasonable to try to do both. Um, could I see myself when if Graham, that's my son's name, if Graham, is taking it seriously and he's having success, and I want to make sure that I'm there to support him, would I put him first and take a step back? Yeah, probably if when we get to that point, that's where it is. But right now, that's not the plan. And um, like I said, my daughter, I would have never guessed. Like she's the most timid, always smiling person, and like she wrestled for a year and a half without. She got her first takedown, I think this year. So she went all last year with no takedown. So she's not wrestling to make the state tournament, but wrestling has changed her in a way that like nothing else could have. I mean, um, she just carries herself differently. She's more resilient. She's more social. So seeing her have that experience makes kind of reinforces that idea of keeping that someone doing that for others.
What's your daughter's name?
Reese,
And how old is Reese?
she's a sophomore.
Reese is a sophomore.
Yeah. Yeah. So last year I tricked her into doing the hydration testing. I was like, hey, you never know when we're gonna need a forfeit. So she did the alpha testing. We go to a dual tournament. She was the only girl that was at like 105 or 110, whatever it was. So she took like three forfeits, refused to go out there and wrestle anybody, had never practiced. She was just like the forfeit taker. And then she came back from Christmas break and
Orphan taker, I love it.
she came back from Christmas break. She's like, I think I want to practice. I think I want to wrestle. And actually, her first match, we did that in school duel with Orange that Brian was talking about. And then after the assembly was done, we did a handful of JV matches. That's when she had her first ever match. She'd only practiced like 4 days.
That's
Uh,
amazing.
and then she stuck with it. We started a girls only club. We call it Empower. And so she did that all fall. And again, she's struggling to put things together, but she really likes it. She works really hard. And, like I said, she pulled out the last dual meet of the year. She pulled out a 16-19 overtime victory.
Call that a barn burner, sir.
Yes, sir.
I love it, man. Hey, how many years left teaching?
I did an audit a couple years ago because I got a handful of years in PRS because when I was at Kent as a GA, I got those 2 years.
Oh,
And then
wow.
I worked for the city growing up. So I think I'm at 20, this year would be 25, 26, something like that.
You did a
So
year at Perry too, didn't you?
So my student teaching year, so I did student teach. So I was at Kent for 4 years, came back in my fifth year, first semester I was student teaching. So I was like, I'm done wrestling. I'm just going to student teach. So I student taught at Perry, coached at Perry that year, subbed at Perry the remainder of the year, and then I came back to Kent as a GA for the next 2 years.
What it was.
So between Perry, Kent, City of Marysville, and then teaching, I started teaching officially in 03, 04. So 21 years there plus, whatever else it is. So
Do you ever get the chalkboard job?
I had it for one semester.
So that didn't give you a year of credit.
No, but it gives you like point 6 or 0.25 or something like that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna almost have another half year because I did that.
Yeah.
So I'll,
As long as you click the button that said pay into retirement. If
yeah,
you can
how about
waive
that?
when you're 17 years old, 18 years old, and they say we're going to take out 10% of your pay, and you're like, I don't want you to take out 10% of my pay. I'm going to waive my retirement. That happens sometimes.
Yep. I think my wife did that. Because she didn't know, but I did the other thing because Frank Romano was all over me. Who I saw.
I saw that picture.
Yeah, I love that guy. He's
I can't believe he's still alive. Probably still wearing the same shoes.
same shoes, still has the same meal money, I bet you.
Did you drop any like change?
I didn't drop any change. I didn't play that game. That we did
I
pair though.
I do. It's like self-revealing when we I teach health and wellness, and we talk about various mental health conditions, and I talk about, OCD, PD, and how, when you're 19 years old, you're not very kind to the people that you don't understand. And we
Yeah,
we tell some stories about Frank, and
there'll be some regret there. Not for me personally, but I know you guys might.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, Marysville, what's it been like to leave? You go off to college, you see another program in Perry, which was right when they were starting to get really, really, really good, to be a nationally ranked program, and then
Yeah.
come back up from a college program at Massillon Perry, come back home. How much stuff did you take from Kent State, from Massillon Perry, and bring back and implement at Marysville?
A lot of things Dave Riggs did. Some of the things Dave did, I was like, well, I don't want to do that. Um, but it was not because Dave's a good guy, just we're different coaches. So I took a lot of his philosophy of see the best teams, like expect to win. When I was growing up at Marysville, like it was the big deal to like you get to the state tournament as a senior, and when that's the standard, then you're never going to get guys on the podium because they're not getting down there early. They don't have that belief. They put it on a pedestal. So, stuff like that, seeing, going to the Brecksvilles and the Wadsworth tournaments and things like that, just getting those losses on your in-season record because then you're tested when you get to the end of the year. Um, my advice to any young coach, especially if they think they want to come home, is go coach somewhere else for a while. Like I wish I would have coached with Dave. I'm glad I went back to Kent and I had the great experience there, and that was a different kind of experience. But I kind of wish I would have coached at a lake because it was either going to be Uniontown Lake or Massillon Perry, and totally different personalities. The Mike Manley, Dave Klein versus Dave Riggs. But I wish I would have went and coached with those guys for 2, 3, 4 years to really get a different perspective than what I grew up in at Marysville. So that would be my advice to any young coach is like go be around as many different coaches as you can when you're young and figure out like what is your coaching style? What is it that matters to you?
Dave freaking Klein, still plugging away, still at
He
it.
texts me every day.
Dude, first off, nicest, most positive guy you'll ever meet. And he's still in it. He's still as fired up as he was before. That
Yep.
it's a good guy like that guy. And I think he's retired from Summit.
Yep.
Oh man, what a guy. And I think his son's
Well,
like the AD there.
yes. And we talked. So Mike Manley got in the Coaches Hall of Fame this year. So when we had the Hall of Fame banquet, I was talking to Dave, and he's like, I was out. And then they went through a similar situation where they had a riff, and Villers, who was the head coach there, lost his teaching job, took a job at Northwest, so he was no longer a coach. And Dave's like, there was nobody, so I just had to step up and keep it rolling until they get somebody else back in here.
Which Villers was it?
Not any of the really skilled Villers around, like that would have
Oh,
been.
it wasn't Jared or Jeremy.
No,
Okay.
no, I
Another
forget.
brother.
Yeah,
Okay. Gotcha. Well, wow, that's crazy, dude. That's wild.
yeah.
Uh, what's your favorite thing about Marysville, Ohio, and being there for ground level to now where it's exploded? Did you've seen it like it's a different world, yeah?
Yeah, I tell our students that every day. I said the Marysville I grew up in is different than the one that you did. Like that big housing development over there was Helmuth's Dairy Farm. Like there wasn't a house over there. And now there's like 2/3 of the town's population is just growing up Route 31 and Route 4. So it's just different. I always felt like it was just a matter of time before 270 kind of merged all the way out to Marysville. And it's making that way. Dublin keeps coming this way. Plain City's exploding. It's just um it like you were talking to Brian, Cleveland has this, shrinking population and Columbus literally just keeps growing.
Yeah. When will Plain City add another school? It's got to be soon.
So, I mean, Jonathan Alter's one high school. It's a D2 school. The question will be, do they add another small high school or do they add on to that school or do they make a bigger school? Because Marysville's been able to kind of, we're going through a lot of growth and we got some financial issues, but Jonathan Alder is an older, smaller building and it's crazy the amount of houses going up around there. So I don't know what their capacity is. So it'll be interesting. But it's like everything else. It's taxpayer based, right? Your schools, your citizens have to decide to raise their taxes to put a bond on the ballot to build another school.
Almost like the value of your home is directly related to how good the schools are.
Hmm. Yeah, a little bit.
Literally it, right?
Yeah.
Um, Tell me about the house you grew up in. I love hearing stories about the house you grew up in.
Oh,
Dad, Len, how long was Len Andrews the head coach at Marysville?
so he coached for 32 years, but he was only the head coach for like 10, I think. But he's still coaching. He's helping out with middle school. He helps out with my son and my nephew's teams. Um, so I always tell the story when I was in kindergarten. We were at school and our house burned down, like all the way to the ground. Nothing left. It was out in the country. It was an old, like 18th century farmhouse that my dad was building up, chimney fire, lost the whole thing. And it was a blessing in disguise because we moved around rentals, but he had a chunk of money that he wouldn't have had otherwise. So he bought like 15 acres in town. And then just being the type of guy he is, like he tore down a brick house, saved every brick, and then bricked the outside of the house that he built. Like when we moved into it, it was plywood floors. Like there's a room that's walls, floors, and ceiling, all an old gymnasium gym floor that someone was tearing, like they were going to bulldoze this school, and he went and salvaged all the gym floor and he used it on the house. Like it's just it was a cool place to grow up in. Two ponds, woods. It was like the perfect place for five boys to grow up.
Dude, that's so awesome. And then who
Not
grew
quite as wild as the Rings. Rings had the silo house. That was wild. That was different too.
also ran into him.
Yeah.
He's in Mars, Pennsylvania.
Yep. Back to coaching. He wasn't coaching for a while.
Yeah, and then his son is taller than him.
Yeah.
It's wild.
He and Josh are pretty close. I figured he'd make it over there for that match.
So he has the silo, right?
That yes, they've sold it since then, but yes, he's the one that grew up in the silo house.
That house still there?
Yeah,
You drive by it and like,
I shake my head. So Ben's older brother Matt was a state runner-up for Marysville. He's a year older than me. He and I were really close. Um, so yeah, I spent a lot of time in the silo house because Ben's quite a bit younger than me.
yeah, Ben's like a '01 or a 2000 grad, maybe.
2000. Yeah, he lost to DeMar in his junior year in the finals, and then they moved up to D1 and beat a kid from somewhere down in Cincinnati, like on in the finals.
So he was a two-time state finalist and a champ.
Yep.
Dude, you know the story about Camargo was 184, he was 197. I was just kind of like this
Student
dude
teaching.
this year, right? They
He got
both
called him up. Hey, we need you in Baghdad or wherever.
they called them the week of the MAC tournament. I'm sitting in Kent Roosevelt in my classroom with Nikki Marchman Boykin, my student teacher. Get the call, and I'm like, I'm retired at this point. You know, it's
Yeah.
right. Um, Zeb, how much do you weigh? I'm like, 220. I was 225. I'm eating soup every day. I'm like, I'm living a good life.
Yeah.
And he's like, can you make 197 this week? They just putting telephones in the classroom at Roosevelt in Kent. And I was like, I guess I'm gonna have to. So I had to fill in for Ben Rings at the MAC tournament. And the first guy I had was Kyle Sermonera, and I
I was
lost.
gonna say who
I
was
lost like really close. I lost like a 4-3 match to Kyle Sermonera.
was that the year he AA'd? Didn't he
What's that?
wasn't was that the year he All American? Wasn't he
Yeah,
Atlanta? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And dude, I took him down. It was all like super strength. It was all like
Yeah.
super.
Retired hillbilly strength.
Yeah, I mean, and we're drinking beers and going out on Friday nights. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, made weight. I lost a close match to him, and then I think in the match, God, I forget what it was. It was this dude from Eastern Michigan, Kraft. I couldn't beat him, and I lost a crazy overtime match to him. So I lost like two competitive matches that I should have never even been in.
Well, you
But
probably
I
look
filled in.
probably better than what was the year? Didn't you lose a bet and you wrestled in like a college open? Like
I was a grown man
that's
teaching
what.
for 6,
Yeah.
7 years at that point. And
Yeah.
then Badleon won the Vegas. Oklahoma State didn't take the Piccinini or someone like that. I forget who it was. And it was like two guys that weren't there. And I was like, and he won the tournament. And I was like, well, I gotta wrestle. Dude, with that, I was just telling a story the other day. I wrestled Marrero, Jordan Marrero.
Yeah.
Um, Costa Cara George.
Oh.
I was supposed to wrestle my second match. And I remember Jaggers like telling me, he's like, yeah, that guy would have hurt you. And I was like, yeah, I know. I wrestled my one match. I probably what he got hurt. We double forfeited, but I wasn't gonna go out there and like, or I wasn't gonna
Yeah.
take a and wrestle again. I was like, I drove right from that tournament, and Jordan Marrero and Tommy Saspy lived in the upstairs of my house. They both got hurt at the tournament. I was 30 something. I was fine. I drove to North Carolina to Wilmington and did like the whole Christmas vacation with one of my college roommates, Eric Torres. Healthy as could be, went out every night. These dudes were laid up in the house in the upstairs.
Tommy Tommy Saspy's coaching at Marysville. He helps my brother
Oh,
out.
don't worry, I got him. I did a bunch of sneak attacks. He was wearing Rudis gear. His brother owns
Oh
Barbarian.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Sent his brother a bunch of pictures of him wearing Rudis.
I'm sure that well, he does have a custom one of one Marysville Wrestling Barbarian shirt that he usually has on.
Of course, of course. But I caught him with Rudis on, so it was good. Yeah, man, I love it. I love old funny college stories. I remember staying with you guys. Who's the Goodspeed was the
Goodspeed,
NFL
yeah.
guy, right?
Yeah.
Dude, Dan Goodspeed was massive.
Yes.
How big was Dan Goodspeed? 6'8"?
He was like all 6'7", maybe 6'8". The crazy thing is he gained 25 pounds every year. When he graduated high school, he was 189 pounds from Lake High School, Uniontown Lake. Went to Walsh College for 2 years, transferred to Kent, and then he didn't get enough NFL time to get a pension, but he bounced around. And then he was in the CFL for like 6 or 8 years. And then he was a player.
Serious?
Yeah, he was a player coach for one of the CFL teams. He was the O-line coach and O-line player. And now he does medical device sales down in Florida. He coaches high school football down there.
And
He
then
was
Morgan.
Yeah,
Morgan lived with you.
yeah. I see. He just ran the sectional tournament for us yesterday, this Sunday.
No way. What's
Yeah,
Morgan up to?
he's a high school assistant principal at Fairbanks, which is a tiny, tiny little D7 football school, a stone's throw from here. It's like a county school in Marysville, in Union County. He was and
Cotter or Cotterman? I forget.
Cotter, and then he
Morgan played football for Kent State and got a scholarship, didn't he?
yep, he went from walk on to scholarship, and then he's a volunteer. I think technically he gets paid, but he gives it back. Volunteer coach at Ohio Wesleyan, which is like 30 minutes from us. So
Okay. Cotter, Goodspeed, Andrews. Give me the other ones.
So for a couple years, Brent
Thompson?
Thompson lived with us, but not all the way through. So I can't remember where you would have crossed paths if Thompson was living with us then. And then a guy named Shawn Wolf, and then Brian Hallett lived with us for a year after Cotter and Goodspeed graduated. But we were just
I
a block.
love Brian Hallett. Brian Hallett is the freaking man. Love seeing him. Great freaking guy. Good dude. Love Brian Hallett. His daughter was rewrote the history books for the shot and disc in the state of Ohio. Awesome guy. Love Brian Hallett. Cracks my back. Used to crack my back.
Yeah,
Awesome guy. Super smart engineer, logistics or something, something with the TPS cover pages.
yeah,
Put the cover page on the TPS reports or whatever he does. He
yeah,
does something, and yeah, he's an awesome guy. Really good guy. Oh man, great memories. I remember we stayed with you guys one Christmas break one year.
yeah,
Those dudes were wild.
yeah. Yeah, there's some stories involving Mark Lensman that probably not good for air, but
Old Mark Lensman. Gotta love a good Mark Lensman story. Do you ever see any other people? Do you see any Kent Staters or running across anybody?
not as much as I used to. Like I said, when I first got into coaching, it felt like there was a lot more guys around our age who were coaching, even if it was for a couple of years. I'd see Magistrelli every once in a while. Sometimes I'll see
Nick Magistrelli's a vampire. I want to get that out of the way.
sometimes I'll see him at I used to see him at OAC events when we hosted a qualifier. He'd bring his kid down.
Doesn't age. He's a vampire.
Yes, neither Sherry. They look like Ken and Barbie.
Yeah,
Um,
vampires. Both of them.
but
I'll check their fangs next time I see them. Check their canines. Canines, right? Yeah. Magistrelli, you got to check those canines for you,
I
buddy. You're
saw I saw Brent Thompson at the gas station Olympic trials.
in
I ran,
Pennsylvania in
yes,
State College.
yes. My Meredith's got an aunt that lives there, so we were staying just down the road. There's like a Dunkin' Donuts at the gas station. I go to get a coffee, and in walks Brent Thompson. I'm like, holy shit! Uh,
What about okay? What about Hagman? Hagman lives in Columbus, lives in Westerville.
I see him every once in a while at youth stuff. His kids are close to
Doesn't
my
age.
age. Yeah.
Looks the same.
Is he a police? Is he a firefighter? Is that what
Fire. He's
Yeah.
fire. Jack's the man. Love Jack.
Yeah.
Jack gave me this.
Yeah.
That was nice of him. He told me I was welcome in Toledo. So wouldn't have had it any other way. I'm like, yeah, I know you wouldn't have. And then the Wentz brothers, of course. I live next to Wentz's twin uncles,
Okay.
Campo Pianos. They're down the road.
Yeah.
Small world, man. Like you say,
It
it's just
is.
this world. If you're, I'll tell you what, if you're a scumbag or a bad guy, people are gonna know about real quick,
Yeah. Yeah.
real quick,
They're out
right?
there. Unfortunately, they're out there.
They are
But
out there. So
I like to think that the majority of the people in the wrestling world are not scumbags. So
we got good folks. I think we got good folks. I would agree with
yeah.
that statement. We got good folks. You got anything else from any good stories or anything?
Um, no, I know we went round and round in kind of different directions, but I always like talking shop. Appreciate you giving me on for a little bit. Excited for the state tournament. I'll be curious to see how it all shakes out, man. Those are men right there. Kenny Clark, see him every once in a while.
Danny Clark, the Kinley. I went to a comedy show, one of Nema's comedy shows this summer with the Kinley. I met him and Shawn once there, and then Nick made fun. Nick tells a story about him hitting a stunner on me, and then Frank Romano saw him do it. I sold the stunner well. Maybe I could have made it WWE. Probably not though, with my 90-year-old niece. And he said Frank Romano saw me do it, saw him do it to me, so looked at it and did a 180 and turned right around and just went over and marked him in somebody else's drilling.
No, you got to do like you do the half man look. You got here, here, and here.
Here.
I see Simmons' brother all the time officiating.
Yeah, he does a good job, Jerry.
Yeah,
I like to call him Corbin, but some people call him Jerry.
yeah.
He's a good old boy, that Corbin. Well, dude, I love it.
So what are you covering? So you're going to be at the state tournament for your nephews? Or you? What else are you? What are you covering
I'll
coming up?
tell you what, if he I mean, dude, I gotta cover it all. Are you
Yeah,
serious? Can't not go. But I have Rob Gore working for GOhioCast, and Rob is really strong with covering the girls. So we'll cover the girls. Is it go 3-2-1 girls again
I believe so.
for the first 2 days? And
Yeah,
then all the final semis are together.
actually, yeah. Well, I think it's 3 and 2, round one, round two, and then one in girls, round one, round two. So they keep the Division Three and Division Two in the building for their first two matches before they get released,
Gotcha.
and then one in girls first two
So
matches.
yeah, interviews. So like every day I'll try and grab someone from your staff like you, because it looks like it could end up being a two-team race in the girls.
It'll be,
And
like the thing that I don't know if they have enough, but like it's wild. It's almost like those early '90s. Who was it that won a state title? It was like a state runner-up with like three guys, somewhere up in
Clyde
Toledo.
won with four.
But
Only had three champs and another guy didn't place.
so Greenview, tiny little school down in Dayton area, has got three girls all ranked in the top three. They got a returning runner-up, a champ from 2 years ago, and a placer.
One
So
girl won Ironman, didn't she?
yeah, she wrestled Kara in the finals.
Yeah. And then dude, what about the girl from Chippewa? She's really tough.
Yeah,
Morshan?
yeah, and she's in the same way as Guntram and Carter from Orange.
That's all the same weight.
Yeah.
And are they both defending champs?
So Carter is a champ. No, Carter's a runner-up. Guntram's a champ. Morshan's a champ.
Dude, Morshan gave my buddy Kevin Roberts' daughter.
All
I
she's
think
equal.
they went to overtime.
Yeah. And then
Roberts' daughter just won her fourth state title in Washington. She's one of the best girls in the country, pound for pound.
and then Morshan beat Guntram, which people did not expect.
Where?
Two,
Where?
2 weeks ago at some like local yokel tournament, like Carrollton Open,
Dude,
like 5 to 4.
the Morshan girl is super duper positionally sound
You can't score. You can't get to her legs.
and strong as all get out because Libby Roberts is the real deal. And Libby Roberts could not get through her head hands defense. And like Libby's dad's a two-time All-American, and he'll
Yeah.
tell you, he's like, yeah, Libby can rock, you know what I mean? Like he
Yeah.
gets it. Her brother's the starter at 149 for Minnesota.
Yeah. So Morshan Guntram will come out of the same district.
So they'll be separated.
So they'll be separated, and and Carter will be opposite whoever the champ is of that. So she'll have the runner up on her half, maybe her quarter. And there's somebody else in the field. Oh, and then there's three champs. So it's a hard story to tell, but Cami Lang was winning 12-3 with 30 seconds to go and got reversed and pinned last year in the state finals by a girl named Morgan Lenhart from Gibsonburg. She's also at 120. So there's three champs and a runner-up at 120.
Wait a minute. So Marshawn was at 110 for Ironman.
Yes.
Wow.
And then she got beat at 110 by a girl from Gresham. You remember Chaz Gresham?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
His sister, Cameron Gresham. At fight, Morshawn went close whizzer. Gresham went cradle, put her back and pinned her in first period, like first minute.
Will Gresham be at the weight too?
No, Gresham is the same weight as Lang at 10.
10. So 10 is going to be a barn burner. 20 is going to be a barn burner.
Yep. And
Oh my God.
for us, we just got our whole lineup. So like Cammy missed the first half of the season. Desi Lee, who was our fourth, she placed fourth last year. She missed the first half of the season. So, there's part of me that's like excited because they don't have the full season miles on the tires, but also they didn't get to wrestle in that fight or Ironman tournament, which kind of tells you where you're at. So
The
see.
fight tournament is a massive tournament too. It's
Yeah.
I think it's bigger than Ironman.
Yeah.
I think well, there's more participants, but
Yep.
it doesn't have a national draw like Ironman. Is that correct?
So I would say not the level of national draw, but they
Ah,
had they had a team from Arizona. 2 years ago, they had a team from Washington, Topish, or Washington, Oregon. They get a couple PA teams, so it's unfortunate. I think Ohio's scheduled next year. Originally, they published a certain date. Now they just moved it back a week, but I think Fight and Ironman are going to be on the same weekend, so teams are going to have to pick.
that's horrible.
Dumb. Yeah,
But you know that Bixby's going to go to freaking
Ironman.
Ironman. You know that Cleveland, Tennessee is going to go to Ironman. So at the
Correct.
end of it, you're going to get more top end at Ironman
Correct.
because it's got more juice. It's because it's alongside the
Yep.
boys Ironman, and it's like
Yep.
you get it. I know you get it. I mean,
Well, but then you float the other direction. It's like, what's the cutoff for your kids who are again? Because again, I look at our lineup, and most of our girls have experience, but got a couple first year starters. Like, do I want their first matches of the year to be at Ironman if they haven't been in the lineup? Whereas fight, it's a couple weeks later, it's a bigger field. You're more likely to get a kid similar to you. So they're different. They're different events, but they're both great events. And I'm hoping one of them like changes their mind about being locked up on the same date.
the Ironman. What was the official name of that, by the way? Please,
Women,
please,
women of Ironman.
Women of Ironman. I really dislike that there's women of Ironman. Whatever. Doesn't matter what I think. The event is what it is. They had a girl from Washington, right?
Hmm.
Like Northwest, and they had a girl from Florida win it.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Good. That's a pretty good diverse field.
Yeah. Opposite,
Yeah.
opposite.
Corners, caddy corner,
Yeah. Diagonal.
diagonal caddy corner. Some of you might call it kitty corner. What is it? Caddy corner or kitty corner?
Caddy is what I would say.
Okay. Well, I heard kitty corner as well. You never know. You never know what who you got lying in the weeds out there and what they're saying,
Yeah.
Shawn. Never know. Potato, potato. I don't know.
That's right.
Oh hey man, I appreciate you coming on tonight. You got anything else for me?
Just no, I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate having Brian on and bringing a little attention to the programs we're trying to grow it. And I think it's still just going to be up and to the right. I think it's just going to keep growing.
I mean, dude, it's totally gonna be yeah, I mean it's exploding.
I mean, look no further than OAC, right? Like they're debating on do they have to have districts? Like are there girls are they selling out their girls events? Are they limiting girls who, were used to wrestle in the boys tournament? And, I have feelings about that, but um but yeah, it's gonna keep growing. And the skill the thing that is probably the most unique to girls wrestling, and I'll leave you with this, is that the prevailing thought on the boys side is okay, all these seniors graduate next year, I got a better shot, right? The incoming freshmen are better than the graduating seniors every year so far. So it gets tougher, not easier when kids graduate out.
Well, the sport's evolving, the
Yeah.
sport's growing. There's just
Yeah.
and it's doing it in like fast forward times 10 compared to how the boys were. I mean, the style's evolving, the levels of wrestling is evolving, the amount of girls participating is evolving, and everything, like you said, is going up and to the right. It's wild to watch, actually. I love it. Hey, stick around, Coach
Yep.
Andrews. Thank you for coming on. We'll
Thanks,
talk
buddy.
a little bit off camera. And Coach, good luck to you in the state series and your girls.
Thanks, man.